Previously on the Fanboys.
Milestone episode on Halloween. Was that planned? Not at all.
It looks like they just got worn down there in that second half.
SC basketball starting their season off on a high note, winning at Randall, but we're not going to ask for your money. We would never do that. Please send money. They threw a dildo.
Well,
this
is like the fifth time they've thrown a dildo.
We're just going to get the hell out of there.
Yeah. You know, this was their first loss, and even in their close games, I've just enjoyed watching them because it actually seems like they're a good team again for the first time.
I'm going to give it a little foreplay action, then I want you to climax. So
this guy is yelling, defenseless receiver! Defenseless receiver! Yeah,
that is amazing if I've ever been in it. And I haven't, just so y'all know, because I'm not black. Crazy trade deadline, Jake, in the NFL today.
Yeah, so this was probably the easiest thing I've ever done. It took me like 2 seconds to write this down. My 1 was Bama, my 2 was Clemson, my 3 was Notre Dame, and then my 4 was UCF. They're undefeated.
And it is time for episode 11 of the Fanboys. We are fans talking as fans for the fans. And Jake, we have another great episode. We had a milestone episode last week. This week, we actually had a little bit of a longer week. We kind of pushed up last week's episode to recording on Tuesday, so it feels like we haven't done the show in forever, but it's only been one extra day. But no, I'm extremely excited about
we needed a bye day.
We needed a bye day. It was just a bye day. And but I am extremely excited about this episode, Jake. We've got some SC football and basketball now that we are in the thick of college basketball. It is back. We've got our college and NFL takeaways as always. And now that we're a little past the midway season of the NFL and the playoff picture's starting to really kind of shape up and it's getting tight there both in the NFC and AFC, we are going to give a little mid-season playoff prediction. And then we have our all-time favorites list. We are going at the tight end position today, and of course our talking points. And Jake, I don't know with the second segment if you have any film that you wanted to go over, but all I really want to do is destroy the Cowboys.
Nope,
because
this football weekend was depressing, but I do like you talking dirty at the start of the episode with a little thick of the basketball season, tight football. Oh yeah, I like
it. Thick and tight.
I like it.
Yeah, all right, Jake.
Like a painful combo, baby.
Hey, let's get this thing started. Jake, it is SC football and a bad loss to St. Mary. We're going to start there, and then we're going to end on a higher note talking about SC basketball and maybe a little KCAC preview of the basketball season. Let's kind of get into that a little bit just real quickly. But, Jake, a bad loss, a loss that we both think they should have won against St. Mary, 49-35 in Leavenworth. It was an away game, but still no excuse for not showing up there, especially on the defensive side of things.
Yeah, against a 3-6 team that you, at this point where we thought this, program we've been mentioning the last couple of weeks, they're really turning the corner. That was definitely a step or two backwards, and it also was the start of a pretty rough football weekend for us.
Yeah,
but
say the
least. That game sums up our weekend. But that's a disappointing loss. I mean, the defense this year for Southwestern, I think, has been the most disappointing thing. They've really been up and down, whereas the offense, once they found their man at quarterback, they've really been pretty consistent. But defensively, they've really been all over the place.
Yeah, winners of 4 straight before the 2-game losing skid that they've been on the last 2 weeks. So something's got to give.
They've beat some quality teams this year, but then, the McPherson and the St. Mary loss, and the Sterling loss, kind of, but the McPherson and the St. Mary loss, that's 2 3-6 teams.
Sterling's number 17 right now, so it's not that bad.
I don't think they're in the rankings anymore. They're 4-5 in KCAC play, or 4-5 overall.
17.
So I think they've fallen off.
So they haven't updated the rankings on the actual website, like on Builder Sports.
That's even how ESPN does their schedule. They show when you beat them what the rank was.
Stupid.
It's really and that's how the committee looks at it. That's why the SEC has a bunch of quality wins, because they beat a bunch of teams who end up falling out of the rankings,
but
like Miami and
Well, Jake, we will get into that. Don't worry. But Kansas Wesleyan this week for Southwestern at home on ESPN3. A very cool deal that the KCAC worked out in NAIA. However, this is not going to be a good game. Me and Jake are not predicting a good game. Kansas Wesleyan is going to mop the floor with Southwestern to end their season on a 3-game losing skid. Unfortunately, don't want it to end that way, but I don't really see any other way. And
unless Kansas Wesleyan is sitting guys for the playoffs, but there's no way they're going to do that because of seeding.
No.
They're a top 10 team right now. They got a chance to get a pretty good seed. They're going to try to really put on a show, and I think that's scary for the Builders. Kansas Wesleyan has scored over 70 points 4 times this year. Their lowest scoring total was this past week against Avila, where they scored 34. And other than that, they haven't scored below 40 all year long.
And my thing with the Southwestern Mound Builders,
I cannot see this game being
the
close.
biggest problem for the Mound Builders has been what, Jake?
Coverage,
defense,
especially over the middle.
Just defense and coverage over the middle, but just this season, just defense. I mean, it's been a rough year. It's been up and down, not a rough year. It's been an up and down year. However, Mound Builders 4-1 at home, 2-3 on the road. But in KCAC play, looks like they're going to finish 500. They're going to finish 5-5 in the KCAC, and it's not horrible, but
really disappointing end.
Disappointing
the season,
end, losing
Unless
3
they
in a row.
somehow win this game, but I just do not see it happening.
I don't see it either. And Jake,
Kansas Wesleyan has a legitimate chance to finally end that streak of KCAC teams getting embarrassed in the playoffs.
They might make a little bit of a run, but let's move on to basketball, Jake. And Mound Builders basketball is on a big-time win streak and played Manhattan Christian whatever, and basically a glorified JV high school team, beating them 98-48 at home. It was 51-19 and a half. Yeah, but our Mound Builders are 3-0 to start the season off on the right foot, beating Ozark Christian, who is a formidable opponent. 99-91 on the 2nd of November was that game. And but Jake, college basketball is back, and now you and I, we both have strong opinions about the NBA and how it's going down the shitter, but we don't have anything too bad to say about college basketball. NCAA level, except for half the teams pay their players now, and it's not really as loyal as it once was. But other than all the behind-the-scenes corrupted bullshit that we see, college basketball, the actual play of it is much more entertaining and fun to watch than the NBA level.
Oh, for sure, just from an environment perspective, and then from, Loyola Chicago going to the Final Four, beating teams that pay their players. College basketball is definitely way higher on my list than the NBA. But then again, the NBA is pretty much at the bottom of my list of things I enjoy watching
at this point in our life, yeah. And Jake, let's just go over just a little bit of maybe just a tiny bit of the schedule of upcoming games that Southwestern has, and then KCAC standings. You have a good hold on KCAC, kind of what's going on and what's to be expected out of this conference. But Oral Roberts, an NCAA team every single year, not Division One, but I mean they go to the NCAA March Madness tournament. You'll see them in there every now and then. So Oral Roberts on the schedule next up for the Southwestern Mound Builders.
Right. No, and actually it is a D1
in basketball. D1.
They're not D1, right. And yeah. And so, I just want to make sure that was clear. But, that'll be a fun test just to see how they do.
It'll just be fun. It's a great experience. To me, Jake, it's a great experience for these kids to go out on the road to Oral Roberts, to be in that atmosphere and to be in a stadium and a gymnasium that big with the crowd that they have against a formidable opponent. I think the experience is what's something that these kids are going to take away, not necessarily a win.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, last game before KCAC play, it'll be against really good competition because the competition in the KCAC is going to be a lot better than what they've played so far this year. So it should be a good kind of getting used to a new speed than they've seen so far this year game as well.
Yeah, and Jake, you and I, we both looked at the KCAC rankings, and we both looked at what some of the teams around the KCAC are doing to start their non-conference schedule, and you've been impressed with what Friends has done, the arch rival of Southwestern.
Yeah, Friends opened up, and they beat a pretty lousy, or actually no, not Hastings. They beat Hastings in the opening game. That's not too bad. But then they beat number 14 Bellevue 91-73, and then their only loss came in double overtime to the number 10 team in the country, who's a powerhouse in NAIA, Briarcliff, and they only lost by 4 in double OT. And Friends is a team that's predicted to be top 3 right there with Southwestern, and then Oklahoma Wesleyan, who's number 6 in the country, who hasn't played a game yet this year, oddly enough. But
that's odd.
Actually, it just wasn't showing they had. They are 4-0 with a 22-point win over College of the Ozarks. It's going to be tough sledding in the KCAC this year. As good as this Southwestern team is, it's still going to be a very tough road. Because you always have the Ottawas, the Yorks, the Kansas Wesleyans. We don't know how Avila's going to be. Just Tabor. I mean, we didn't even mention Tabor in those names. There's so many teams in the KCAC that even though they aren't as consistent as maybe the Southwesterns and the Friends and the Oklahoma Wesleyans as far as this year goes, they're still stacked full of talent.
Yeah, and Jake, it's something that you and we have both talked about over the years, especially being at Southwestern and while we were both on campus, is that the KCAC has always struggled to make a push into the national tournament, at least deep into the national tournament, and Southwestern was Oklahoma Wesleyan was actually the furthest team to go last year. But both Southwestern and Oklahoma Wesleyan both represented the KCAC well last year. I think they have a good chance to do that and should get an at-large bid this season, and maybe we see 3 teams from the KCAC depending on how conference scheduling and how that kind of goes with other teams like with Friends and Oklahoma Wesleyan as well.
Yeah, and 2 years ago, I believe it was Tabor who went to the Final Four or the Elite Eight. One of my years I was there. I can't remember one of my last years I was there, but the KCAC in basketball is a lot different than the KCAC is in football. It's a lot more talented at a national level.
It's kind of like the ACC. It's kind of like the ACC where basketball in the ACC is the top dog. I mean, you got North Carolina, Duke, and all that. And then football, you got Clemson, and that's really about it.
Nope. I agree.
All right, well, Jake, let's move on to our takeaways, and that'll do it for talking SC sports. And we promise you, I know we've been talking about it, but we promise you we are going to figure out a way to get Coach OB on the show. He wants to do it. We want him on. I know you guys want to hear it. We are going to do it.
In the works.
Just give us some time. College takeaway, Jake. Hello?
Hey, sorry. Yeah.
Did you fuck up again?
Okay, we're good.
Jesus
we're good.
Christ.
Okay, we're good. Just continue from the top.
Jake, college takeaway.
All right, so I think the only way Bama's going to get beat this year is if it's a team that just has a dominant offense. I mean, just from watching the LSU game, it's just obvious Alabama's defense, which has looked a little bit vulnerable at times this year, against average offenses, they're still going to be able to dominate, and their offense is just not going to be stopped this year, and that's kind of the difference between this Alabama team and Alabama teams in years past, where they were vulnerable on the offensive end. This year with Tua, I mean, they don't look stoppable when he's in, and so I think the only way to beat Bama is, ironically enough, to outscore them. But I mean that as far as in a shootout, and I think there's very few teams in college football can do that this year. And worst of all, I think there's very few teams that are competing for a spot in the playoffs that have the offense to do that.
My college takeaway involves Bama as well. So I just wanted to ask you this. Is this the best Bama team that we've seen under Nick Saban?
Probably.
I think I'm going to say yes. I really do, because I've not seen them have a superstar quarterback who can control an offense and be completely calm under the biggest of circumstances at Death Valley at night and just basically make it look easy. I kind of hate to say that, but 29-0, that's kind of making it look easy.
And it was they were just comfortable the whole time.
Right. They were never rattled.
Yeah, and the only reason I hesitate is because this defense is definitely not as good as other I know this is coming off a shutoff,
right,
but they gave up like 31, I think, to Arkansas, who's been bad this year. They've given up some points this year, which is uncharacteristic. And I'm still not really sure how good the SEC is. But then again, I'm really not sure how good college football is this year outside of Alabama as far as quality of team wise.
Well,
And
I think Alabama makes everybody they're so much better than everybody. It kind of makes everybody else look kind of dumbed down.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I mean, ironically enough, one of the few teams in the country I think that could maybe have a chance against Bama would be like in Oklahoma, just because they have the offense that I think Bama wouldn't be able to stop, and it would just literally be who has the ball last wins. But I don't even think we're going to get a chance to see that, and I definitely don't think the Michigans, the Notre Dames, and the Clemsons of the world can beat Alabama.
Yeah, Jake, I would have to agree with you, unfortunately. Maybe Clemson, if they play their perfect game, they'd have to play.
Though. It's just,
yeah,
I can't.
It's just not going to happen. But and my take is about Alabama, and it's going to be real quick because I really don't like talking about Alabama longer than I already have to. And since we both had Alabama as our takeaway, I'm just going to say it, and then we can move on. But Alabama is the most hated team in America, more than Duke, more than Golden State, more than the Patriots. They are the most hated team in all of America. And if you want to counter that, you can, or you can just move to your NFL takeaway.
Nope. I agree with it. No point countering it.
Yeah. I mean, if you saw Twitter, dude, I mean, I think literally 99% of all America was rooting for LSU to win, and that 1% was just Bama fans.
Yeah, and it might have even been less.
It could have been less.
There's a lot of fair weather fans. We'll get into that later. Spoiler alert. So my takeaway is for the NFL is, in basketball, it's been the West that's been so dominant over the East for the last probably 5 years at least. And I think the NFL is like that this year. When I look at the NFC teams compared to the AFC, it's not even close in my opinion. I mean, down the line in the NFC, you got Rams, Saints, Vikings, you had the Panthers, you had the Seahawks, the Falcons, the Bears. You have all these teams. So then I look at the AFC and I'm like, there's the Chiefs. They don't have very good defense. There's the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots are always good. And then there's the Chargers. And then I don't really like any of the other teams. So I think the NFC is the equivalent to the Western Conference in the NBA this year, where they just completely outclass the other side of the other conference.
And you might look at some records, and some people might go, well, AFC teams have some better records than NFC teams, longer death-wise. But that's just beating up on each other. I mean, I know people say the same thing maybe about the SEC. Is like you get those middle teams, and they're just beating up on each other. Well. Whatever. But the NFC, in my opinion, Jake, I'm completely with you. I just think that the NFC is so much more top-heavy than the AFC is. And just a little quick tidbit, Jake, why is it that both of our teams are in the West in the NBA and our team is in the NFC in the NFL? Why can't we have the shitty conference?
Because God hates us, Tanner.
All right, and on that note, I'm going with my NFL takeaway. Jake, I don't know if you watched the Rams-Saints games, but
yes,
I truly do. I mean, I watched every snap. I watched every single snap, every play, and I have never been more entrenched in a game and focused on a game in so long. That game was so entertaining to me, but that's not necessarily my takeaway. My takeaway is that 39-year-old Drew Brees, I think, is playing his best football of his entire career. And I'm not just saying it because of that Rams game. I've watched other Saints games, but this team is so good, and he has the most weapons. Now you add Dez Bryant. We are going to get into that. But, dude, you've got weapons, and their defense is playing good, and they're solid. And then you get that team inside the Superdome, they're not losing at home. That's just not going to happen. So if they get that win over the Rams, could pay to be huge in the future. If say Rams drop one or two games, which looks to be unlikely, but Saints, it comes to a tiebreaker between Saints Rams, that game might give them home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs, and that's going to be a huge advantage for the Saints. But I just think that the 39-year-old Drew Brees is playing his best football. Jake, he was out there scrambling for first downs. He's running and diving head first for first downs.
I know. He's on my fantasy team. He scores a lot of points.
It's amazing. It's truly it's unbelievable seeing what at the age that he is, and he's playing the way he is, and the way he is playing. like style-wise. I mean, he's scrambling, he's running around, he's doing everything he can to help his team win. I've been impressed with Drew Brees his whole career, but never more than this season. I think right now he might be contending for MVP.
Yeah, no, if Patrick Mahomes wasn't doing what he was doing, I'd probably have Drew Brees winning it. So, I mean, if Patrick Mahomes does slow down, I think Drew Brees would be the next one to slide into that MVP slot. I can't wait till we get to the playoffs because A, the Cowboy season will be over, and B, the NFC playoffs is going to be so much fun to watch. It's going to be great. Every game is going to be, other than the wild card round where someone just absolutely blasts whoever comes out of the NFC East, it is going to be a great playoffs.
No, Jake, I completely agree with you. I really do think that. And Jake, since we're already on the topic of NFL, let's go ahead and do our all-time favorites list. Let's just try to go as quickly as we possibly can here and get to some other stuff because I know we have our playoff predictions as well. So, Jake, I'm going to let you take the lead.
Yeah, so my number 5 is Jay Novacek. Not a guy I got to see, obviously, play during his career, but I've seen highlights, and I got to meet him one time where he was signing, and I mean, I didn't really talk to him or anything, but I just saw him.
Yeah,
and
you just
he played at Wyoming, small school kid, all-time great Cowboy. That was definitely a guy I wanted on my list because when I think of tight ends, Jay Novacek always comes to mind.
He did come to my mind as well, and whenever you say all-time Cowboy, you don't just mean a Dallas Cowboy. I mean, this dude is a Cowboy. I mean, Wyoming Cowboy, and he lives the lifestyle of a Cowboy.
Complete badass.
I will go to my number 5, Dallas Clark, not just because of the name, but he was kind of one of the first. I mean, obviously between him, Witten, Gonzalez, I have a very small time frame between my tight ends. They're all leaped in, they started their careers all at the same time. I don't know why I have this kind of obsession of this era of tight ends, but they were all good to me. But Dallas Clark for the Indianapolis Colts, he was always that security blanket guy for Peyton Manning, and he was kind of the lost guy that Peyton Manning had with Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison. If you're really keying in on those wide receivers, he just, right over the middle to Dallas Clark, and Dallas Clark never had gloves on, never wore gloves, always had taped fingers, just kind of a real old school type of tight end, and I always appreciated his play, but Dallas Clark was my number 5.
Yeah, my number 4 is Travis Kelce, and I mean, he's right there with the best tight ends in the league right now. He's kind of that new era of tight end.
The best.
Yeah, probably the best. I mean, some could argue Gronk, but he's never healthy, and even though Kelsey's had a couple injuries, he's just a matchup nightmare. He runs like a wide receiver. You can spread him out. You can do a lot of different things with him. He catches everything. He's tall. He's fast. He's big. And when he's on the field, he's just a force to deal with, and especially with Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball, it's even better. But, yeah, Travis Kelce, I love watching him play, and he's at my number 4.
Yeah, and a lot of my guys, Jake, I like the guys that aren't the glorified, bigger wide receivers. I like the guys who get down in the trenches with the linemen and block and do their job on that side of things for the tight end, kind of the old school way. So my number 4, Jake, is Todd Heap for the Baltimore Ravens. Had a great career there, kind of a shorter career. It wasn't very long, but due with injuries and all that stuff. But Todd Heap had a great career, and he was kind of one of the only good receiving options the Ravens had on those Super Bowl or that Super Bowl team. And kind of, I mean, with the lack of offense in the running game, he really helped the running game by him being a threat at the wide receiver or tight end position receiving the ball because they didn't really have anything else to throw to back in the day. They were always kind of one of those just power run, rely on the defense, but he was one of the bright spots on that receiving corps, Todd Heap.
My number 3 is Tony Gonzalez, and I think this one's just self-explanatory. This guy was arguably the greatest tight end to ever play the game. I got to watch his whole career. Whenever the Cowboys had to play against him, I was always terrified that he was just going to go off and get 200 yards receiving. He was a monster, and he was good at blocking in the trenches. He was really a do-it-all tight end. He's first ballot Hall of Fame guy. I mean, he is just an absolute monster, and he could probably still play today if he wanted to.
Yeah, and Jake, if we were going based on best tight ends, this tight end would be a little bit lower on my list, I think, but my next one is just because he's my favorites. He's just a fun guy. I think you can't talk about tight ends, any type of tight end list, without mentioning Gronkowski. Rob Gronkowski is my number 3 just because he likes to party. He's an idiot. He's just one of the most biggest meatball head guys, football guys you're ever going to meet, and he laughs at every 69 joke, and it's really immature, but he doesn't mind shotgunning a beer on camera and just having a good time. And but he also shows out on the field. That's my thing, is if you're going to do all that stuff off the field, you have to show out on the field, and that's exactly what he does. So number 3, Gronk.
Yeah, if you couldn't tell by me laughing at the 69 joke, Gronk is my number 2. And for everything Tanner said, and he had a comedy special one time on HBO. I turned it to it. It was probably the worst thing I've ever watched. He just talked about how every time he takes his shirt off, every lady gets wet, and the ladies just kept yelling and screaming about it. And I was like, well, it's working, but it's terrible comedy. If you ever get a chance to look it up on YouTube or something, do it, because it's actually painful, but it's just literally describes his persona. And then the fact that defenders say whenever Gronk's running a route down the field, you can hear him just laughing to himself as he runs down the field like a complete psychopath.
Neanderthal. Yeah, he's a Neanderthal.
He's either a psychopath, but the Patriots have already had a psychopath at tight end, so I'm not going to give him that title. But I mean, Gronk is at my number 2.
And Jake, my number 2 was your number 3, Tony Gonzalez. The only thing I want to add to it was he was kind of the first primary receiver tight end. You see, the Jimmy Grahams, the Gronks, the Travis Kelce's, who are really athletic and fast. The Vernon Davises, whenever he's at the Niners. Guys that are basically really big wide receivers. And Tony Gonzalez was kind of that first mold of the next generation. He kind of gave all these guys, Tony Gonzalez walked so Gronk could run, kind of thing. But Tony Gonzalez is my number 2.
And my number 1, and I don't think this will surprise anyone.
Anybody, but both of us, Jake. 1, 2, 3, Jason Witten.
Yeah. I didn't realize what you were trying to go for there.
Yeah, but I was going to count down so we could both say it at the same time.
Well,
so you ready? 1, 2, 3.
Jason
Witten.
Yeah.
Witten.
Oh, wait. Okay. Yeah. We're not going to try that again. But even despite
1, 2, 3,
Jason Witten. Okay. And now everyone has exited the browser and are no longer listening.
Yep.
So fuck it. Jason Witten, despite being about the worst broadcaster I've ever heard in my life, he's a complete robot. But as a tight end, he was a robot in a good way. He could block. He killed the Giants. He killed NFC East teams. I'm pretty sure everyone was happy whenever he retired, because even though he was 80, he was still doing really good. Looks like he could still play when you just look at how fit he is still. He was a leader. He personified what it meant to be a Cowboy, to be a leader, to be a football player with toughness, never missing games, played with some horrific injuries. I mean, this guy just personifies what you want in a football player, period, and is a pure class guy off the field. Jason Witten, on anyone's top 5 tight end list, he should be there, and on a Cowboys fans list, he should be number 1.
He should be number 1 on any Cowboys fans list, on any type of tight end / wide receiver, offensive player, even just flat-out player for the Dallas Cowboys. He's in my top 5 of just Cowboy players, period.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Jason Witten, number 1. You said it for all the right reasons. Did everything on the field. Walter Payton, Man of the Year, off the field. It doesn't get much better than Jason Witten.
Nope. What, predictions next, right?
Yeah, let's go NFL predictions, Jake. And since we are on the topic of Cowboys aren't going to make the playoffs, but let's just go to. I was going to try to make a segue there, and it didn't really work. So I was going to say,
since we're talking about a shitty team, let's now talk about the quality teams.
Let's talk about some good teams. There we go. And so NFL playoff predictions, Jake. We're about at that, a little past halfway point. But yeah, Jake, let's go ahead. Since you started off tight ends, I'm going to go through my AFC. Let's start there because the NFC is going to be a much more interesting topic. So AFC, we actually have all the same teams, just not in the same seeds. So I've got my number 1 as the Patriots. I think they come away with that number 1 spot. I think the Chiefs come away with the number 2 spot. The Texans at number 3. Steelers at number 4. So those are all my division winners. Patriots, Chiefs, Texans, Steelers in that order. Wild card teams, I have the Chargers, and I think the Chargers actually end their season with a better record than, say, the Steelers or the Texans,
or
possibly. Or possibly both. They might be the third best team in the AFC. They just someone has to be that wild card spot, and that's the Chargers. And then I think the Ravens. I'm not sold on a 6 team. I'm really not. I just did the team that I think is most prepared for the playoffs. I don't think the Bengals, with AJ Green being gone, I think they're completely out of it now. And then Miami, I just don't trust Miami. So Ravens. I'm kind of by default Ravens.
Yeah, and mine's very similar. I just had the Chiefs at the 1. I mean, they lost to the Patriots head-to-head, but they still got that game up on them. I see the Patriots probably dropping another game, and I don't see the Chiefs dropping too many more. I think the only game they might drop the rest of the season would be whenever they play the Chargers, but that's also at home, so that will be a pretty tough game for them to drop. Definitely the toughest game they have left on the schedule. I got the Patriots at 2. The Steelers 3, Texans 4. I don't really care. You can flip-flop either one of those teams. Neither one of them are going to do anything. I got the Chargers at my 5, which, by the way, would be my number 2 if I was just picking AFC power rankings, because I think the Chiefs and the Chargers are the top 2, and then I'd have the Patriots at 3. Granted, the Patriots will still do better than both of them and make the Super Bowl because they're the Patriots, but still. As far as actual quality of team, I would do that. But once you get into playoffs, different world. And then by default, the Ravens at 6 because, like you said, A.J. Green's hurt. Miami's a terrible team. They're definitely not going to cut it in. Jaguars are done. The Titans suck. I don't really know any other AFC team. Yeah, the AFC is really weak.
After the top 3?
Yeah, really after the top 3 because, 2 of their divisional winners have looked pretty mediocre through a lot of this season.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Now let's switch it over to the NFC, Jake. My number 1, although they did just lose, it's okay. They were undefeated before that. People forget. Rams are number 1. They're still the number 1 team in the NFL, regardless of the win or the loss. They're the number 1 team in the NFC and in the NFL.
They almost came back from a huge deficit on the road in that game.
Yeah. In the second half, they look like a much better team than the Saints did too. So, but anyway, Saints at my number 2. Vikings at my number 3. I think they come away with that north spot. And then Eagles. I have the Eagles, I guess, winning the NFC East. I don't know. Panther, because the Redskins just lost their entire offensive line against the Falcons. Panthers at the wild card spot because I do think that they are actually the third best team, just very similar to the AFC. I think my 5th seed wild card team is better than 2 of the division winners in the NFC. And I hate to do this. I really didn't want to. But I've got 3 teams out of that NFC South. I've got the Falcons sneaking in as that last seed just because they've won 3 straight. I think they kind of getting a little momentum going. I think Julio getting that touchdown is going to actually kind of spark something, and it's going to start coming in bunches now. And I think that offense is going to be nearly impossible to stop here if they kind of get things clicking like they have been. So I get the Falcons sneaking in the last week of the season in that 6th spot.
I hope it means Julio's about to go off even more than he already has. Got him on my fantasy team.
Yeah, no one gives a shit.
Yeah, well, I kicked your ass this year.
No one gives a shit.
I gave a shit when I kicked your ass. I also had the Rams Saints 1 and 2, pretty much for all the reasons you said. I also had the Vikings 3. They were my preseason Super Bowl pick. I think they're slowly getting it together, and they're a team that could get hot at the right time, and they definitely have the best defense out of those 3 teams. Redskins at 4 because who cares? I really don't care who makes it out of that division. It'll either be the Redskins or the Eagles, and either team is very beatable. And then I have the Panthers at 5 as well. They've looked like a team who, if it wasn't for the division they were in, could probably win about any division in football. And then I have the Bears at 6. The Bears are sitting with a pretty good record right now. I think, with Khalil Mack out, their defense has still played good whenever he comes back. Their defense is even a different animal. Trubisky is up and down, but he does enough, and he doesn't really typically just flat out lose you a game. They've been consistent enough to be a wild card team, and so I think they'll slide in there at that 6th spot. But I definitely could see a Falcons or even like a Seahawks coming up in the rear at that 6th spot. The Seahawks are quietly right around 500, so that NFC 6th spot, it's going to be interesting to see who comes out of that, because whoever comes out of that is not just going to be a cupcake pushover team. Really, the only pushover team in the NFC is going to be whoever comes out of the East, in my opinion.
No, Jake, I think you're completely right. I think the wild card teams, I think, honestly, whoever comes out in the NFC, I think whether it be the Bears or the Falcons, and just forbidding the Panthers don't have a complete meltdown that they get that 5th spot, or even, heck, they still have a chance to win the division. But whoever comes out of that 5th spot obviously wins. I'm picking the away team in that one. And then, I mean, you could see both of the 2 division winners who play in the wild card game lose those games, and then you get 2 wild cards advancing in the NFC. It's just that tight. It's that competitive.
Yeah, and the way I have it, a Bears-Vikings, that'd actually be a pretty fun matchup to watch there in the first round.
Third, they play the last week of the season, Jake.
Yeah,
so it'd be back-to-back weeks.
And we've seen that happen before. That's always fun when that happens. So I would actually really love to see that happen. But it's going to be very interesting to see how this NFC race shakes down. We talked about it earlier. The NFC is definitely a lot more interesting than the AFC is right now.
Yeah, and Jake, let's go ahead and move on to what I've been bashing, and it was such a joke of a game, Thursday Night Football, but there was something good that came out of Thursday Night Football, and I don't want to get too serious here because it's just a cool story, but Nick Mullins, man, I mean, you can't feel just but joy, and you just can't feel great for the guy. Nick Mullins, an undrafted player from Southern Mississippi, played at the same school as Brett Favre, wears the number 4 because of Brett Favre, and has actually become pretty good friends with Brett Favre because of him breaking all of Brett Favre's records at school, and showed out and possibly had one of the greatest undrafted rookie free agent debuts any undrafted rookie free agent has ever had at any position in the NFL.
Yeah, it made that game fun because obviously it was a terrible game, but in a blowout. But watching him just light it up like that made it worth it. His post-game interviews and everything was awesome, and it saved Thursday Night Football this week to where it actually made it a memorable week.
No, yeah, and it did, and like you said, the game sucked, but him doing that, that's kind of one of the cool stories of the NFL, and that the NFL has plenty of those almost every year, but it's just really cool, and you kind of hope that he continues the success, and he takes over maybe even as the backup role for maybe another year or 2 under Garoppolo when he comes back next season, but he has a good rest of this season and then maybe can get signed somewhere else and succeed. He'd be a good story, and honestly, Jake, if he is successful, if he can continue his career, I mean, we might be looking maybe at the next Tony Romo.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, we have seen it happen before, and it'll be interesting to keep up with how he does this year with the San Fran team that has definitely had a disappointing season.
Yeah, and that's mostly because of injuries and Jimmy Garoppolo.
They have a talented
they have a talented team. And so anyway, Jake, let's move on to another talented team and a big signing, and a big one from Dallas fans and Saints fans. Dez Bryant to the Saints. Jake, I want to get your take on it. I'm going to give mine, but I want to hear yours first.
I mean, I guess we'll see what Dez. I mean, he's going to a team where he has a great chance to succeed, but I'm not making as big of a deal as a lot of people are. I mean, they're going to play the Cowboys. He'll probably have some catches, but I guess I just don't care as much as other people are right now because, he's still an all right receiver. He's not going to be forced to be the number 1, so he'll do fine there. But I'm not one of those people who's freaking out about it because I was happy whenever the Cowboys cut him because he was not an elite receiver anymore, and they couldn't afford to pay him that money. So I guess my take on it is I saw it, and I was like, good for Dez, and we'll see how he does. But it just didn't really affect me that as much as I thought it would.
No, Jake, it doesn't affect me, but I think in terms, and I'm going to take my Cowboy hat on, and I'm going to put a Saints hat on. If I'm a Saints fan, I'm thinking this is the most low-risk move your organization could make. I think it's a great signing just because it's so low risk. It really is. And I think because, doesn't need to be forced to be the number one. It's obviously Michael Thomas. It's by far Michael Thomas. And I think also it's going to be a very easy, maybe transition for him. And with Drew Brees playing as well as Drew Brees is, he's going to get the ball to him whenever he needs it. And when they call his number, it's going to work out. But if it doesn't work out and he throws a little hissy fit or whatever it is that he's going to do, and Sean Payton can handle it. Sean Payton handled a disgruntled Adrian Peterson and just told him to go sit down, and then they got rid of him. Sean Payton is not going to put up with any bull, or he's not going to put up with anything of that sort. You know what I mean? Like, I think that with having Sean Payton knowing how to handle Dez Bryant, which I think he does, I think it's going to work out. I think it's very low risk. If it doesn't work out, they're 7-1 without him. He just sits him on the bench and is like, well, we're just going to do our thing that we were doing before you got here.
Yeah, I agree with it. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it like a lot of people were. I mean, it's a good signing for the Saints because, like you said, it's low risk. He doesn't really have to do much if he has a bad game. It's definitely not going to be a huge story or anything because I don't think many people who know what he did his last few seasons with Dallas really should expect that much.
No. And Jake, let's move on to the college game. Football will stay there, but the Longhorn game against West Virginia, we have to talk about it. Longhorns have now lost 2 straight, and they are going into a very tough game at Lubbock at night. Another tough one there for the Longhorns. For anybody who thinks otherwise, they must not watch very much Texas Tech football. Longhorns, the game kind of made me, although, the whole horns down thing, the whatever with, Will Grier talking shit to the fans and telling them to fuck off. You know what? It kind of had flashbacks to like Baker Mayfield. It was like a Mayfield-esque type game for Will Grier. I mean, he made the plays when he needed to make them, and he had it with an attitude, and he was confident, and he just basically told the Texas crowd to suck his dick after the game. And I mean, it kind of, I hate to say this as going, as a Longhorn fan, but it kind of made me like Will Grier even more.
Yeah, that last throw he made was unbelievable.
Incredible.
It's one of the best throws you'll ever see.
Like, you won't see a better throw. You can see Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady make that exact same throw, but it will not be better.
Yeah, no, I mean, Will Grier played unbelievable. I mean, granted, the Texas defense, you felt like every play someone was getting hurt. It was definitely one of those kind of unfortunate games for the defense where it's just like you had a bunch of guys in that you weren't expecting to play. And I know next man up, but you can only expect that for so long. But, Will Grier, I love guys who are competitors like that. To me, that's all it was. He's just being competitive out there having fun.
I agree.
I didn't take it as him trying to disrespect the Longhorns or anything. But it was a great game. It is a heartbreaking loss. But I think we're pretty much on the same page where, this is the first time in a long time that we get to look forward to watching Texas each weekend. And this is a Texas team that still has a chance to win 9 or 10 games in total this season and still win a couple tough games that are left on their schedule in Iowa State and Texas Tech. And it has a really good chance to end out the season strong and what would be considered by anyone who was realistic going into the year as a successful season.
And I'm still looking forward to watching them play. I've been looking forward to them play every single week. They're a fun team to watch. And speaking of Longhorns that are fun to watch, this is a great story. If you're not aware of it, this is more than basketball. This is more than football. This is more than sports. But if you're not aware of it, Andrew Jones, a guard for the Texas Longhorn basketball team, was diagnosed, was it leukemia last season? And he's overcome it. He beat it. He's back on the court. He made his Texas Longhorn his second debut on the court on Tuesday night. And Jake, that's just awesome. Yeah, I mean that's so incredible.
He was a big time player for Longhorns before he got diagnosed, and for him, he only got to play like a couple minutes because I'm sure there's still they're still doing some checks. And some things like that, but. He's been talking about wanting to get back on the court on not only just playing, but on a consistent basis where he can start again because he was a starter. And, I feel like it's only the beginning of this story, and I feel like we'll be talking about this again later this year or maybe even next year because I think he's going to I think he's going to make a complete recovery where he's back on the court and able to play big-time minutes again and be a big-time player. And I feel like this is just a great story, but it's only the start of what's going to be an incredible story.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And from I think everybody has been affected by cancer in some way, maybe not themselves being treated, but a family member or a friend or someone in their life that has had cancer. And coming from me with 3 family members, having to deal with that and passing away from cancer, from my family to everybody else who's dealing with cancer. Fuck cancer, beat it, kick its ass, do your thing. Don't let it get you down. Stories like this can keep you going, and I couldn't be more happy for Andrew Jones and the Texas Longhorn basketball team for supporting him and helping him get through that. And it's just a great story.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's just the start.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's definitely the story has not been completed yet. There's still a lot more writing to do in that book. So Jake, college basketball. Let's stay on the topic of it. It's back just in general. All college basketball is back, and they did their little Blue Bloods matchup that they do every year with Kansas and Michigan State and Duke and Kentucky. And Jake, Zion and RJ Barrett are unreal, and Duke is basically going to be the Golden State Warriors of college basketball because they're winning the whole thing, and it may not even be that close.
Yeah, well, I'm very, very slow to say that they're going to win the whole thing because March Madness anything can happen.
Yeah,
I mean, that Kentucky team that went undefeated, that was truly unreal. Just like this Kentucky team appears it can be. I mean, that Kentucky team,
DeMarcus Cousins and John Wall.
Anthony Davis, I'm pretty sure, was on that team, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think he was a little after that. I think he was like a year or two after because they only stay there. They only stay 1 year.
Yeah, that roster was just Anthony Davis was like before then, I think, but that Kentucky team was stacked, and they still ended up losing to that Wisconsin team. I think this Duke team is definitely the team to beat, but they were absolutely, just crazy in that first game, scoring 118 points against Kentucky. It's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how the year unfolds and see if they just blow everybody out or if they start to have some weaknesses. But that was definitely one hell of a performance to start.
Yeah, and I just think, with all the hype going around Zion and RJ Barrett and the 4 5-star recruits that they had and 4 of the 5 top picks in the NBA draft this upcoming year, whatever the crazy numbers are, for all the hype, I was really thinking this Duke team may crumble under the pressure, but they did not. At least in the first week, they have not, and they don't look to be stopping. And they don't look to be stopping any time soon. So,
especially with that payroll they're on, they should be expected to perform.
They're getting paid higher than LeBron James is at L.A., so, whatever. You do your thing, whatever. But anyway, Jake, let's go real quick. I know this is something that just broke the internet right now, or at least in Cowboy Nation, it broke the internet, and then we'll move on to the Cowboys, but I think it's a good segue to it. But, yeah, Jake, you go ahead and you do it.
Yeah. So 2 things. First thing is Le'Veon Bell tweeting upside down some stupid tweet about respecting his decisions or something like that. And now everyone on Twitter is tweeting upside down, and it makes me want to beat everyone's ass until they're upside down.
I don't even know how to do that.
I don't either. That's the even more annoying thing. I can't do it to annoy other people. And so I don't know how he did it. People need to stop it. Twitter needs to disable it or something, because when you're going down your Twitter and you feel like you drank too much, you really feel drunk when you're looking at it. And it started by Le'Veon Bell, and I already don't like him anyways. And then Jason Kelce has, and granted, you could take the entire Eagles fan base and all their players and put wrap it all up, put their IQ and use it all together to maybe lightly toast a piece of bread. But that aside, Jason Kelce might have the lowest IQ of them all, coming out and saying that the Cowboys are all fair. Their fan base is full of fair weather fans, which makes no fucking sense. The Cowboys... Well,
explain why he said it. Explain why he said it, because of the winning tradition and that they only just follow wins.
Which doesn't make any sense for the past 2 fucking decades of my entire life of pain and misery of being a Cowboys fan, where I've only seen like 2 playoff wins, and none of them were in the divisional round. And it's been basically what it felt like to be an Eagles fan for 50 plus years until they finally did something last year, and now they're back to reality. But still, that was the dumbest.
Oops, there goes gravity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, including the Le'Veon Bell tweets where there's no gravity.
Yeah.
But,
hey.
Yeah, nice segue. But yeah, it's a stupid statement.
You're right, Jake.
Stupid statement.
You're right. It's really dumb because the Cowboys have not experienced that much success, hardly any at all. If anything, we've been completely average and mediocre for the last 20 years. I mean, honestly, I think you go back from, I would say, 98 to 2018, that record is more than likely 500, maybe even a little bit below 500.
Yeah, I don't want to look at it because it'll just piss me off more, and I'm already pissed off.
Well, Jake, rev those engines up, man. I want you pissed off for this next segment because we are going into the Destroy the Cowboys segment. I am just going to go ahead and say it. Cowboys won't win another game until the Colts game December 16th, and that is 6 weeks away, I think, if I'm not, maybe 5 more games. And so that would make them lose 7 games in a row, counting the last 2.
God, I hope so, because then maybe Garrett will get at this point, I don't know what it's going to take because I don't even want it to happen in season. It needs to happen now. Garrett needs to be gone. Linehan needs to be gone. Everyone needs to be gone. The only person I would even possibly kind of think about keeping is Chris Richard, and I probably would keep him because I do like him even though the defense struggled this past week.
It was bad. Okay, Jake, and I don't understand how the Titans can run 3 total different plays, an RPO, which gives you a pass option, and that was, I think, every single time they passed it was out of an RPO. The actual read option with Mariota and whatever fucking running back was back there, and a screen. That is 3 plays they ran, and the Cowboys could not get off the field. 10 of 13 on third down conversions. That right there just irks me to my core. Could not get off the field.
Yeah, I still blame this game on the offense because at the end of the day, the defense went out there. They got the momentum. They got 2 turnovers to start it, and the offense had 3 red zone possessions. Mm-hmm. They only scored 7 points. It's just literally this team. Everyone is underperforming. Everyone. Zeke's underperforming. I don't care. He's underperforming. The O-line is heavily underperforming. Even without Travis Frederick, they're performing way below what I thought they would, and many other people.
The individual players like Collins and Smith, and even Martin. I've seen Martin on his ass a few times.
Yeah, Martin hasn't had what you typically expect, and I don't know if Travis Frederick just meant that much, but I really just think it comes from the top. It comes from the head coach, and his whole motto is to compete, and they're not even doing that anymore when you get embarrassed by the Tennessee Titans at home in primetime. I've been done with Jason Garrett since about 2012. I'm really fucking done with him now. And I'm getting to that point where it's just like, if they keep him, I can't keep watching this shit. It is so unbearable. I mean, and just seeing him on the sidelines just clapping and just being the soulless fucking ginger that he is, it just drives me nuts. And if Jerry doesn't get rid of him this year, I really start to question whether Jerry actually cares about winning as much as he claims, because you cannot keep this guy at head coach whenever it is by far past proven that he is not a winning coach. And even when he has a good regular season, he doesn't win in the playoffs, because when your motto is to compete, you're not playing to fucking win.
No, and Jake, it's something that your dad brought to my attention, which I thought was actually pretty a good thing to say, was he gave Landry 1 or 2 years. I think his second year he was gone, or even fired him as soon as he got there. Maybe I don't even know if he had a full season with Landry as the owner. Jimmy Johnson was there for 3 years, won 2 Super Bowls, or 4 years, won 2 Super Bowls with him, and then he fired him. And then he gets Switzer, handed the car keys of the Ferrari to him, and he didn't scratch it, gets 1 Super Bowl out of it, and he's there for like 3 or 4 years, fires him, and then, kind of goes through, gets Bill Parcells, whatever, starts this whole new regime with Tony Romo and Jason Witten, and then you get Jason Garrett at the helm after Wade Phillips went 13-3 1 year, and then the next year or 2 was like 6-10 or whatever, and then you fire him mid-season, let Jason Garrett take over, and Garrett has been nothing but extremely mediocre and average and even piss poor sometimes, and he's there for fucking 8 years. What the fuck are you thinking, Jerry? I mean, you're going to give Jimmy Johnson, who has 2 Super Bowls in 4 years from your team, who was 1-15 his first year to a Super Bowl winner in the next 2 years, that long, and then you're just going to give Jason Garrett as much time as he needs to just be completely average and to compete? That's bullshit. And another thing that a buddy of mine here was telling me is, and he's completely right, they're not playing with pride. Not a single player is out there playing for his coach. They're not playing for each other. They're not playing for their team. They're just not playing for anything. They're just out there literally collecting a paycheck and collecting losses week after week after week because they're not playing with pride. They're not playing with any type of emotion. They don't give a fuck. They're just out there just to play and get through the next game. I mean, that's literally all it is.
Yeah, to me, the Titan game, it was a team giving up on their coach and on a system that
Lost
has
the locker
proven
room.
not to work. And I think the defense's back broke after it got tied at 7 when they had played perfectly and the offense had just failed to score. Scott Linehan and Jason Garrett couldn't find a job at a fucking local high school once they leave the Cowboys. I'm done with it. I'm not looking forward to any of the games the rest of the year. I said this back in week 2, and I really haven't changed my stance on it. I just want them to lose out. I just want Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan to be fired so this franchise can move forward and figure out more important things. Like, is it the system or, is Dak not your guy? Has it been a combination of the two? You got to figure out this type of stuff. And the only way to figure that out is by getting a new coaching staff, because I'm pretty sure that we could have Drew Brees right now and we would still fucking suck, because I truly think the coaching is the biggest problem. I don't think the Cowboys are that untalented compared to other teams in the NFL. I feel like if you put Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan on the Rams right now, the Rams would probably be a 2 or 3 win team. I truly feel
You're
like
not
that
wrong.
because and people can say, well, they had some good regular seasons in the past. Well, the NFL is evolving now faster than it ever has at any point during, at least when I've been alive, where offenses and defenses are changing so much, not only because of rules, but just because of new schemes and new ideas. And the Cowboys are still back in the 90s with their offense, and it's not working. And I definitely think it starts with the coaches. And I think the only way to evaluate what players you actually want to keep on your team at this point is to bring in a new coach with fresh ideas and a new scheme, and then figure out if you need to get some new alignment. If Dak is the problem, is Zeke going to be the real deal moving forward? To figure out all these questions, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
We need energy. The Cowboys need something new. We need to be refreshed with something. We need a new face. We need a new leader. We need someone new at the helm that these players can actually get behind and believe in what they're doing, because right now they don't believe in Rod Marinelli. They don't believe in Linehan. They don't believe in Garrett. They don't believe in any of the coordinators or head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. They've completely given up. They need new faces. They need an energy. They need young guys. With this young team, they're tired of listening to these old fuckers, these wrinkly bald motherfuckers that don't know how to run like you said, a new, current, up-to-date offense or defense for that matter. The Tampa 2 defense was out right after the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were done running it. It's so easy to run against. It's not that difficult to scheme and for quarterbacks to diagnose it. You saw Mariota, who has some of the lowest quarterback percentages and offensive stats as a team in the entire league, and he just picked us apart like it was nothing, because it's elementary reads from a quarterback on that defense. And I loved our defense up until this week, and like you said, their back broke, and that's not their fault. It broke because of the offense, and we just don't have it together. We don't believe in anything that we're doing. None of the players like doing what they're doing. They need a new face. It needs to happen. It's just become monotonous and old, and they're done with it. They're done. And Jake, I said this, and I'm going to end my statement off with this, and then you can add whatever it is that you want. This Philadelphia game is going to be Philadelphia Eagles by 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think the Eagles are that good, but I just
No, they're not.
Yeah, I just don't see the I mean, I'm just done. I'm literally just done with this coaching staff. You even heard it at times during the broadcast of Jason Witten talking about how hard it is for things to work in that offense and basically just bashing the scheme. And that's a guy who played in the scheme for a long time. Troy Aikman has come out and said it needs a complete overhaul. I mean, it's getting really bad. And, you know, I live in the Dallas area, and it is very – the tensions are very high. People want Garrett out. People want Linehan out. They're done with it. I'm done with it. And there's just, you know, I've said it before, and I'm not even trying to protect Dak because Dak has definitely not been good this year. It's definitely not all because of the scheme. But I definitely think you can't figure out you can never have a current day quarterback play in this scheme. It doesn't matter who you put back there. Baker Mayfield would look the exact same right here. I mean, all these young type of guys would look the same. And I just don't think you can win with this outdated scheme in the NFL, no matter who your personnel is.
We're done with the fucking Cowboys. And Jake, we are the Fanboys. We are fans talking as fans for you, the fans, and we are always going to be here for you. Like, share, subscribe, do what you got to do. Get our name out there. We really appreciate it. We love you, listeners. Thank you, and good night.